Sorry for the technical issues. I'll start again. Hello everyone and welcome to a fresh episode of PhD the Philosophical Drama. I'm your host Shweta and today we are going to discuss about academic writing and science communication. And to discuss that, we have a special guest with us today. Her name is Prapti Mody and she did her PhD from Texas Women's University and she's currently working as a programs manager bioinformatics at UT Southwestern Medical Center. So let's call her over and discuss her transition journey from a wet lab scientist to a science communicator. Hi Prapti.
Hello, finally.
Yeah. How are you?
I am good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that, I'm sure that today's session is going to be very resourceful for our viewers.
Yes, I'm very sure too. And I'm very excited that I got invited to talk to you all about science communication. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll start with a very basic question. What exactly do you currently do? How is your job related to science communication?
So my job title officially is program manager in the bioinformatics department, but my role is nothing like a program manager, right? So my job entails grant review, manuscript review, website design, graphic design, any marketing or science communication initiatives that the department wants to take towards the public.
Hmm?
All of that, like beneath one banner of just along the lines of a scientific development associate. So that's the whole area. But science
Okay.
communication is a huge part because bioinformatics is hard for the lay people to understand anyway, because
Right.
they have no programming knowledge or any of that thing. And so what my job is to make sure that any channel through which we are communicating, people, whoever are watching, reading our stuff can understand.
Okay. Okay. So basically, you translate the difficult things into easier things for
Yep.
a broader uh, audience to understand technical aspects of science and
Yes.
more. Okay. So how did you transition? You were like a wet lab scientist, right? Before when you did your PhD, and you also did a postdoc, right?
I did.
So how did you transition?
So towards the end of my PhD, I was becoming a little tired with the funding scenario. We were writing a lot of grants and none of them were getting funded. And even like papers, you write something and the reviewers bring back really nasty comments. You know, all of that starts getting to you when you're in year 6 of your PhD and wanting to get out.
Yeah.
So I was getting tired of it, but I liked the research. I was in aging research, neurodegeneration.
Okay.
So I decided to give myself one more chance, and therefore I joined a neuroimmunology lab to work on aging and pain. I had a fabulous 2 years in my postdoc lab because I really, really loved the science that I was doing. But at the same time, I was then expected to be an independent writer, right? So when you're a
Right.
postdoc, you don't get the mentorship that your PhD mentors give you.
Yeah.
And so that was the time that my postdoc mentor was actually very up in front with me about your writing skills are good, and I can see that you might not have an extra vested interest in the wet lab research. What is it that you really want to do in your career? Do you want to keep going, become an academician, like a scientist, a PI, have your own lab, or do you want to diverge because now is the way? And that really got me thinking. And I was like, you know what? I really want to pursue scientific writing and science communication because that's where my main passion lies. I don't care what science I'm talking about as long as I'm talking about science. And so that made things easier. And we were planning to apply to this writing fellowship, but it's very competitive in the US and it's on a national level. Like they only accept, I believe, 15 people per year.
Okay. Wow.
And so we were going to apply for that last November. But
Okay.
in between all of that, I was also job searching. So here's another tip. Never stop looking for jobs and going on interviews no matter where you are in your career. If you're in grad school, keep interviewing. If they come back to you and say that we need you now, you can always tell them, no, I have to finish my degree, so I'm sorry.
Right.
But it gives you a lot of practice. So anyway, coming back from the tangent.
That's an interesting tip.
uh,
Okay.
Then last summer I was applying and I heard about this job for grants and contracts specialist at the bioinformatics department at UT Southwestern. So I applied, sent them my CV, got accepted for an interview, did the interview, during which the recruiter found out that I already had a PhD and a couple of years postdoc experience. So she's like, Prapti, you have more experience than is needed for this role, but I might have a new role for you if you're willing to give us your attention for that. And I was like, yes, what kind of role? And so we talked it out, and they basically created a brand new role for me in the department because turns out I was exactly what they needed. A PhD scientist looking to transition out of academia, but still stay in an academic institute and help the faculty.
Yeah.
They needed somebody like that who to understand the science on a deeper level. So that's
That's
where
great.
that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, it's like the best of both worlds, which means like you are also very, very close to science because I mean, you read everything that's like contemporary research and all of those things, and you actually process it and make it available for the people.
Yep.
So that's actually a very nice, like a sweet spot in between where like a lot of fields merge together.
Yes.
So that's really nice, and I'm happy that like you ended up into something very interesting. So you said that your mentor, your postdoc mentor, had a lot of like he or she, I'm not sure who that was.
He.
Okay, he was like he had a contribution to navigating you towards like writing. So, do you have any stories with respect to this, with respect to like your lab mates or something like that, like while publications or writing or something like that?
Yeah, so turns out that when I accepted the postdoc, both me and so my postdoc mentor was Michael Burton.
Mm-hmm.
He's still right here in the Dallas area. He's at UT Dallas, and he runs a great neuroimmunology and pain behavior lab. So he needed a scientist with an aging background for research
Mm-hmm.
to carry forward some of his aging projects. And so when we started working together, he saw my writing style, and he had about so many, like 3 or 4 manuscripts worth of data that he was just not able to write because like so he needed somebody to analyze the data, make interpretations, write about it, and then take it forward. And he needed an independent postdoc to do it because he's a fresh assistant professor who's had his lab for like 4 years now. And he was overwhelmed with a lot of things. And plus he has to guide his PhD students, so he needed a hand there.
Right.
So it was me and another postdoc, Nilesh, very good friend. He's now back in Sweden, where he came from. And so we sort of had the oversight and we helped Michael do that. So during that
Mm-hmm.
time, I think I spent the first month of my postdoc just writing this one manuscript from scratch because we had all the data for it, but it was just data. It was Excel files, and nobody had put it together, analyzed it, interpreted it. And that was my real first initiation for my thinking shift from neurodegeneration research to pain and how that relates to aging and then the aging models of mice and rats and that sort of thing. So that first month was really, really tough for me because what I did was go to lab every day, sit in my office and just read, read, and read so that I was able to write a good manuscript.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so once he saw that work, he was like, your writing is very progressive. It's better than a lot of the people I've seen so far. So he was very happy. And so it worked out for us that he had all this data that he needed somebody to pick up and write. And I came to his lab at the same time. And so we made it work. And it was a really nice fit.
That's great. So did you like have any writing experience, or like did you do any writing courses or something before that, or?
So while I was doing this first month of reading and stuff, I came to know about this free course on Coursera. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's an introduction to academic writing for scientists, and it is
Okay.
very basic. I will send you the link belatedly so we can add it later to this
Sure.
episode if we want. It's and like I said, it's free, but it does require a significant time investment. Like it stretches over weeks. So there's a
Okay.
series of YouTube videos where accomplished professors from different universities talk to you about how to write and why you should focus on certain phrases and what not to do and what to do. And so it was
Mm-hmm.
a really nice course that I felt really amplified that inherent skill of writing that I already had, but it just made it better because it was
Okay.
providing a lot of structure and a lot of reasons for why I would write it this way and not a different way.
Okay, okay. So other than the Coursera course that you did, do you like use right now, like now that you are actually into writing and communication, do you use any resources which can be helpful for if you think like if I knew about this during my PhD or early, in that month of your postdoc, then it would have been really helpful for me. Do you think that there are any resources? Do you use any of those kind of resources?
Not regularly. The main reason is that I am mostly reviewing other people's
Okay.
writing, right? So I'm not writing my own articles or my own blog posts or anything like that. I
Mm-hmm.
am reviewing scientifically what people are sending me.
Okay.
And so I have to first get oriented with their writing style and then
Mm-hmm.
give them feedback on the structure, the flow, and then try to sort of bring it all together with always emphasize what is the big picture and what is the one central point that you're trying to convey to your audience.
Right, right. Okay, okay. So, how does your usual day look like now?
So my day is every day is different, which is why I'm enjoying my work. I thought I will miss that aspect of wet lab research where every day you go into lab, you're excited, you're setting up a new experiment, and you're just super excited to see what the data will bring you. And I thought I would miss that a lot if I transition out of research, but turns
Yeah.
out it's not like that at all. I have new things to do every single day. And so, for example, I might log in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
spend about half an hour going through my communications, my emails, Teams messages, seeing if there's anything anybody needs urgently this week or whatever. And then I start doing all the different duties that I have. So I can separate my job role into three main categories. One of them is strictly administrative, where, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I am the admin for nano courses that we offer through the bioinformatics department. So this
Okay.
includes a lot of stuff like setting up registration forms, making sure that the emails to specific class registrations go out on time, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's highly like, technical administrative work. But then
Right.
the second portion is scientific review. So then at any given week, I usually have two or three things on my desk to review. That might be like a trainee's NIH grant, for example, like Postdocs K99 or an
Mm-hmm.
F32,
Mm-hmm.
or like a faculty's R01, something like that. And these are all NIH grants. And they will apply for private foundation grants. So sometimes I have those to review. And then the third aspect is really, I would say, communications, but as it relates to PR. And so I am the primary PR person of the department who is now making sure that we get our research and the broad message out via
Okay.
whatever channel we can. And so that
Okay.
includes our departmental websites, that includes lab websites that the faculty have. Um, that includes our careers pages where when we are
Mm-hmm.
posting different jobs, trying to amplify those jobs on social media and be like, here's why you want to come work with us. So it includes a lot of marketing too.
Right. Okay. That's like a variety of things that you do.
Yeah.
So, when you were saying that you review people's grants which they have written, or you probably also review papers, and certain like abstracts and certain things. Different writing styles are like different people have different writing styles. So how do you manage that? Because let's just compare like a PI and a student. If both of them are writing together and if their writing styles are different, then it becomes very difficult to merge both of those things together. So how do you deal with like this difference?
Yeah, so first thing, you have to read a lot. Okay. When I shifted from neuro to bioinformatics, I had to shift my entire thinking because these are highly technical, like especially for manuscripts. These are highly technical papers that include a lot of code and programming, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not familiar with any coding or programming. So that's the first step. Like you read, give yourself time to digest what is written because
Mm-hmm.
just once or twice you give it a read, that's not enough. So oftentimes I'll do this. I'll take an entire afternoon, just carefully read everything, then stop, read everything again, and then sleep on it. So just don't touch,
Okay.
no editing until the next day. So that gives my brain a little bit more time to process what they're trying to say. Because we always go into any situation with our own perspective, right? And so when
Yeah.
I'm reading it from a neuroscientist's perspective, barely anything makes sense to me. But our brain is constantly trying to find familiarity in everything, right? And so it matters that you first stop and not push your own perspective onto that writing, but first
Yeah.
understand what their perspective is.
Yeah.
And then the next day I start editing, and all my editing I do with track changes, whether it's on online Word document or on a LaTeX document or Overleaf or
Mm-hmm.
whatever platform they send it to me. I just make sure that I track all changes. In case I change anything that changes the meaning of their sentence, then they
Hmm.
can revert that back.
Okay, okay. So do you like sit with them to discuss sometimes like let's say like the translation of something is I understand because in neurobiology jargons are very different, and I'm sure that that exists in all fields. So, do you sometimes sit with people to like dissect out that this is? Do you mean this or do you mean this, or is it just like an online editing thing?
So it's both. Depends. It depends on quite a few things. It depends firstly on the faculty. If
Mm-hmm.
they want a face-to-face with me, I am willing and able to make time for them to talk to me. If they are comfortable with my review on paper, then I just put everything that I think in comments. So
Okay.
if I'm unsure about something, I just put a comment instead of editing the actual content, right? So I will just put a comment and say, I think you mean to say this, and so here's how you can phrase it simply. Or if you didn't mean to say this, then could you perhaps try to make this more understandable by sort of
Hmm.
removing these terms or explaining these terms? And so that's the kind of feedback I give them.
Okay, okay. So that's how you clarify things. All
Yes.
right. Um, the third aspect of your job, which you were talking about, like PR and marketing. So, are you also involved in any kind of science outreach?
We're planning outreach initiatives. We've started a couple of them. So one of them is our global journal club called NeuroChats. So what is going
Okay.
on is the bioinformatics department is now making large ties with OBI, that's our brain institute at UT Southwestern. And so in line with that initiative, we have hired one faculty member who is specialized in neuroinformatics. And we really
Mm-hmm.
think that this field needs more PIs and scientists because it's really important to understand brain circuits and brain disease and all of that. And informatics has so many tools to help us do that. And so, in this context, we started this global journal club where we want to give graduate students and postdocs who are first authors on these leading papers in Nature and Science and all the big journals who actually don't ever get to talk on their own, right? It's always their PI who gets invited to give seminar talks. And so we wanted to give them a platform globally to explain their research behind the paper and sort of just connect with peers. So that's one
Yeah.
outreach. We have a lot of initiatives through UT Southwestern where we have high school and undergraduate interns all the time coming to campus, working in our labs, seeing the different lab topics that we work on, and just that opens up our field to, a lot of people. And this
Yeah.
is the beauty of bioinformatics, that literally any field in biology or any field in particular can benefit from bioinformatics tools.
These are like really great initiatives. So how do you like, for example, I know of certain say competitions which have like elevator pitches, like where you have to talk for 3 minutes, but and that's where you have to explain your PhD project or your paper, which is very, very detailed and has a lot of technical aspects, but you have to simplify it so much that the layman can understand. So, how do you think that one should go about this?
So my recommendation would be that if you have a 3-minute elevator pitch, a good division is split it up into three parts. So the first minute, you're introducing your field and the big problem or the big knowledge gap that you're trying to fill. The middle minute is basically you're conveying, here's what I am doing to fill that gap um, via these tools. And then you talk a little bit about your methods, but not crazy technical words, right? Just very simply, very much on the surface. And the last minute, really, you want to bring home the point about impact and significance, how this research is going to benefit the people in the audience ultimately. It may not be directly applicable, and that's okay, but it is a step in the right direction towards taking it to translatable science, maybe in the clinic, or maybe an application, a software, an app-based something that will benefit the humankind eventually down the road. So you
Yeah.
always want to end with that big picture impact.
Okay. Okay. That's very helpful. Coming back to writing, and again, writing for layman, how do you like, there is always a difference between writing for scientists and writing for non-scientists. So how do you like decide like this should be different, I should probably make these kind of changes in this writing because this is going to go into like for a broader audience and everybody has to read and understand this, versus this is going to go into a paper. So how do you make that decision?
So fortunately, in my current role, I don't have to make those decisions. The
Okay.
PIs do, which is great because it takes a load off my mind. But oftentimes I come across writing that, suppose they're writing a paper for, say, a journal that has a very broad audience of cell biologists, molecular biologists, bioinformaticians, statisticians, all of these people. And if they write the paper in a bioinformatics language heavy format, then that is going to affect the readers of the journal because they're not going to engage with that content, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we want, because really, say the paper that I am reviewing really has an impact for cell biology because we're discussing software and AI and machine learning tools that can allow you to automate scanning hundreds and thousands of research images and predicting that here's what the scenario is. So for something like that, you want to emphasize that coolness factor. And so in the
Hmm.
abstract, in the introduction, in the discussion, it is very necessary to add these elements at every point you can and say, remember, this is the big picture. See the forest, not the trees. And here's how this research will benefit the field. You have to always keep bringing that point home.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful because there are a lot of, like, for example, there are a lot of conferences, and if I'm talking about like neuroscience, or because you were into aging and pain neuroscience, there are conferences which are like just pain neuroscience conference. So that's where you can like present a talk or a poster which is very filled with the details of or the intricacies of the experiments, because people who will come and visit your poster, they will understand that, or people who will listen to your talk, they will understand that intricacy. But if you're talking about the same thing in a cell biology conference, then it's going to be difficult. So you have to like broaden your horizons there and explain it in a different manner there. So I guess,
Absolutely.
I guess that also works for writing for scientists as well as non-scientists.
Yeah, and
And
like I
yeah,
think we have this view that scientific writing is only manuscripts and grants. That is so not true. You put a status up on Twitter talking about science, you're doing scientific writing.
hmm,
And really, it is in your best interest to convey your thoughts in the simplest way possible. And this only comes when you yourself have clarity of thought. If you're
yeah,
not clear on what you want to say, you will go round and round and round and talk a lot. But if you know what you want to say, this is the central point that I want to emphasize, then that's what you say. And you will find a way to do it.
yeah. It just has to be coherent with respect to the audience, I
Right,
guess.
right.
Yeah.
Audience is the key because it doesn't matter if you're um, the highest awarded Nobel laureate or something, but if you cannot talk about your research to the person who's standing in front of you, that's kind of what's the point, you know?
It's not going to be understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I understand. Um, so again, writing styles. When like people start writing, maybe in their first year of PhD, where they have to like write like a literature review or something. A lot of times, because our reading is less research papers and more maybe novels, we start writing it in a story form. Like, I have heard from people whose PIs have told them that you are writing like you're writing a novel or a poetry or a story, but you are supposed to write in a scientific manner. So, and that confuses people a lot. Do you have any tips for that?
So here's the thing. Um, I'll start by giving my own example. So when I was about to defend my dissertation, my writing for the dissertation was in that scientific format that we
Hmm.
call it. But my PowerPoint that I was presenting, it's my own, right? That's 100% what I put together. After my defense was done, my committee was like, "Your PowerPoint was beautiful. Why can't you write your thesis like that?" And it took me aback. I was like, "Excuse me? I thought I did." And they're like, "No, you're so clear and so concise with your slides. Why don't you translate that to your dissertation?" And that really got me thinking, like, is there, is that how I've written my dissertation? That I just go on and talking about my research because I feel like it has to be a long document, right? And they're like, the number of pages or lines does not matter. What you want is to get your point across. And so I will take a step back here and say, if you're writing your stuff in science like a story, that is great. That is a great starting point because every scientific research problem is a story. And you have to, well, we don't want to make it fantastical like, dragons and stuff, but we do want to engage the audience in a story format. So what I have heard in the US when I came here was like, you have to tell a compelling story with your
Yeah.
scientific writing, be it a paper or your dissertation or your grant, whatever. But there's lots of resources out there on the internet who explain to you that when you're writing an abstract, you should start with this, you should have the middle portion that talks about this, and then you should
Hmm.
end with an
Yes.
impact statement that, and all of this helps because it puts in order your thoughts and it helps you to make a coherent story.
Okay. Okay. Um, Final question. What's your motivation been? Like, do you ever have a writer's block? I know you don't write, you review, but in case of reviewing also, I'm sure like there is a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore because it's a lot of words in my mind now. So how do you re-energize yourself? How do you deal with this?
So for re-energizing, I would deep breathing definitely helps. If you're not into deep breathing and yoga, I highly recommend it. It does a lot to calm your mind. Second thing is have enough, set yourself enough time so that you can take a break and come back to it. And never work on something continuously. Your brain needs time to process and digest. So for me, I have always found that when I'm working on something for a week, it helps to take a step back, forget about this whole thing, and come back to it next week with a fresh pair of eyes. And then I end up catching a lot of stuff that I've missed. Because the more repeatedly you do your things and you put yourself under this stress about due dates and timelines, the more
Hmm.
likely it is that your quality of writing will suffer.
Yeah.
And so you have to know your own pace. So, like, if you're a person who needs to read a lot before they start putting words on paper, then set
Hmm.
yourself that time. And you figure this out as you go. So when you were talking about, writing in the first year of their PhD, like
Yeah.
we have to spend so much time reading the literature, and even then we miss articles all the time. Nobody is out there who will be able to read all of the literature on a certain topic and be able to write a fabulous review. That's not really the point. The point is, whatever you read, are you able to distill that information, make a hypothesis based on it about here's the future direction my research will take because the rationale is sound, and then here's how I'm going to do it. And once I do it, the findings that I have will lead to these many implications in this field. That's really the little story in a nutshell of what you want to do.
Right. Right. Okay, that's great. This has been like a fun half an hour for me, and I think I have learned a lot from this session.
Oh,
Thank you
good.
so much for like being so resourceful and telling so many things about like the details about scientific writing and communication. Thank you so much. Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome,
joining
Prapti.
us.
Thanks.
Yeah. You can exit the.
Yes.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed today's talk. And if you have any comments or any questions, please ask us and put it in the comments as we share this video with us. Till then, we'll meet you in the next episode. We have yet another interesting topic coming up. So we'll see you then. Stay tuned. Bye.